Champions Cup Sunday games, of which there are 4. Monday over here in New Zealand it will be. But yeah, 4 pretty interesting games on paper. I would say the one I'm most looking forward to is probably the third one, just in terms of how close the result may or may not be. On paper anyway, it looks like it's going to be a close one. But yeah, we'll go through 4 of the games, some of the predictions, lineups, and yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts on how these games might go. I feel like for the first one, Leinster's probably going to have a wee bone to pick with Montpellier. Not that it's Montpellier's fault, but Montpellier beat Leinster 28-0 the last time these two teams met. And I remember getting a call from my dad about this, and he was like, what the hell happened? How did Leinster lose 28-0? Because he hadn't heard that the game was called off with the COVID cases, and Leinster got the loss and Montpellier got the win, which was a weird one because a lot of other games were just called off. So yeah, very, very bizarre. But yeah, at least this one's apparently going to go ahead. It's at the RDS. 1 p.m. kickoff for this one, so it's an afternoon game. And yeah, Leinster's lineup's looking pretty strong. You've got a back row, which is Conan, Van der Fleer and Doris, which ain't half bad. James Ryan and Maloney's in the second row. Furlong, Kelleher and Porter front row. Like, as always when you see a Leinster lineup, there's a lot of Irish internationals. Kind of, yeah, it goes without saying. Hugo Keenan's there at fullback. Interestingly, Sexton's on the bench for this one with James Lowe and Luke McGrath. So again, Irish internationals all over the place. But yeah, as I said, it's a pretty full-on Leinster lineup. For Montpellier, I don't watch the top 14 enough to know whether this is their strongest team, but I'm going to put my neck out and say probably not, because I know a few of the players that play for Montpellier, and they are not in the lineup. I don't think they played last week. I think their game in the top 14 was also called off. So neither side had a game last week in the URC for Leinster or the top 14 for Montpellier. So there's a possible threat of a little bit of rust from both sides. Nariashvili is there at loose head. Guirado is captain. I haven't seen him play for a wee while, to be fair. So that'll be nice to see him, because I'm not sure how many years rugby he's got left in him. Forsans is there at 10. Aprazita is there at 9 as well. So, yeah, a couple of Georgians, some French internationals, some South Africans. As per usual, the Montpellier lineup is a wee bit of a mixed bag. Lamusatele is there as well, the American. So, yeah, proper mixed one. But as I said, I don't think it's Montpellier's strongest lineup. Happy to be corrected with that. I wish I had time to watch some more top 14 maybe one of these days. But the odds speak to Leinster's predicted big win, basically. 31 is what the bookies have got Leinster winning this one by, which is pretty massive. Even the Rugby Forecast algorithm, which tends to be a little bit more conservative than the bookies, says 26. So Montpellier, apparently for this one, are up against it. But yeah, we will see how things go. Leinster are 8th because of that loss, and Montpellier are 7th. They've both got the same record. But remember, that last game didn't get played. The second one, Bordeaux and Scarlets. Scarlets haven't played a game. They're like Bristol. They haven't played a game at all yet. The last game they played was called off. So it was a draw between these two sides. And then the previous week, Scarlets were also one who... They forfeited the game, basically. They said they couldn't field a team, so they copped a 28-0 loss. Bordeaux did lose their opening game, so yeah, they'll be looking to turn things around. I'm interested to see Jalibert is there on the bench, and I don't think he was even on the bench for Bordeaux last week in the top 14. Again, it's the price of me not following the league closely at all, so I'm not sure kind of where guys are at with injured. I know DuPont's out at the moment injured, and there's a handful of other guys who are still injured. Like, that generally comes through Six Nations news. But yeah, it's Trunduk and Luku, which is a pretty experienced combo for 9 and 10, so certainly no slouches there. They've made a few changes from their side, which played last week in the top 14. Cordero comes in on the left wing. Setuni is there at 13. They've moved Biari to fullback. He was on the bench last week, but it's not real wholesale changes. They've got a new hooker in there. But for the most part, it's kind of part of the squad which has been either brought up from the bench, added from outside the squad that played last week, or just in the same position. So it's kind of a proper mix that you would expect to go from week to week. Some guys need a break, some guys are out. So it's about the normal number of changes, maybe slightly more, but not real wholesale changes for Bordeaux. I'm keen to see Kane Douglas off the bench as well, to be fair, because I haven't seen him play for quite some while. Likewise, Dueba and Tamiafun and whatnot, but that's just my Southern Hemisphere connection. Scarlets, as I said, haven't played for a wee while. They had the whole South African debacle thing with the URC. I'm trying to think, have they played since they came back from South Africa, or are they in the same boat that Cardiff were in? Have they played any games in the URC? I feel like they might have played one. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. My memory is just generally not very good. But I mean, I'm pleased to see Liam Williams back. I know he's been copping a bit of stick from Scarlets fans on social media in recent times because he's leaving the club at the end of the season, and they're saying that he's kind of not played a heck of a lot of games for Scarlets in his time since joining them from Sharsies. So good to see him back nonetheless. McNichol's there on the right wing, Steph Evans on the left, Jonathan Davis is captain, he's at centre. Gareth Davis is there at 9, Blade Thompson's at 6, so it's also a pretty stacked, and Wyn Jones on loose head. It's a pretty stacked Welsh international lineup with the Scarlets boys. They are underdogs for this one big time, but I look at the lineup and give it a bit of a chance. I mean, the Bordeaux lineup's also pretty stacked, but hopefully this one, in terms of how close the predictions have got it and how close it is going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be closer than what they're saying it's going to be, because the bookies have got Bordeaux by 11 and the forecast says by 22 for Bordeaux, but I'm not sure how they've been calculating the old cancelled games for the Scarlets guys. So yeah, we'll kind of see how things go. This one is a 4:15 local time kickoff, which I think is 3:15 over in the UK for you Scarlets fans. I think it'll be about 3 in the morning for me, so either replay or highlights for this one. I'm still kind of trying to work out which games I should watch, but Scarlets are 11th and Bordeaux is 7th in their pool, so both sides could use a win, but Bordeaux at home certainly big time favourites for that one. The next one, Northampton and Ulster, I'm very keen to see this one because we did watch this one get played a few weeks ago, which is more than we can say for the first two games. These teams actually played each other only a few weeks ago, and it was Ulster 27, Northampton 22. It was a pretty good game, especially because Northampton in their first Champions Cup game had gotten a hiding by Racing. So it was good to see them kind of be competitive. And Ulster, for the most part in the URC, have looked the business. They did have a bit of an off week last week against Munster, where they looked a bit average. But for the most part, Ulster have looked really, really good. So Northampton in the Premiership, this is where I guess I get a better feeling for where the teams are at because I've actually been following those two comps. Northampton have been a bit hot and cold. Some games they're really good and some games they've been quite disappointing. So, how these teams kind of stack up will be interesting to see. Is this game on at the same time as the... Yeah, this has got the same kickoff as the previous game, the Bordeaux Scarlets one. So you guys might have to pick and choose which one you're going to watch. But I'm looking at Northampton's lineup. It's pretty stable from what we've seen last week. So I guess Chris Boyd's pretty keen to get a result here because it's minimal changes. Like Furbank's still there at fullback. He was really good last week. Scored tries. Set up one, like good line breaks, cracked up a heap of meters. Skorsan has been on a bit of a try scoring run for the Saints as well. He's been a really good acquisition. He's certainly upped his game since... he's been good in South Africa, but he's been a wee bit quiet for the last season or so. But since hitting the Premiership, he's been on absolute fire. Bigger and Mitchell are there at 9 and 10, or 10 and 9. Courtney Laws is back. They've got Brandon Nansen in the second row. Don't know if I've seen him play before, but Waller, Matavesi, Hill, same front row, so very stable, kind of minimal changes for the Saints. For Ulster, a few more changes, but I'm pleased to see Robert Ballacoon's back because I seem to remember he got injured a wee while ago, but is now back, so that's, as I said, very pleasing. James Hume has shifted to outside centre. Stuart Moore's in there at 12. Marty Moore's there at tight head. Kieran Treadwell's up from the bench. Marcus Ray's up from the bench. Nick Timoney's been having a great season. Dwayne Vermeulen, I don't think he's really made his mark on the Ulster squad just yet, but he's only been there a few few games, so we'll kind of give him a bit of time. Cooney's injured, so Nathan Doak's stepping up at 9, but he's looked the business as well in terms of his season. Still very much an emerging talent, but I back him to have a good game, and Billy Burns is there at 10. So this one, in terms of the predictions, is very, very tight. The bookies have got Northampton by half a point, so pretty much at evens, and the Rugby forecast algorithm's got Northampton by 1. So it doesn't really get any tighter than that. It's supposed to be a very, very good one on paper, but we'll see how it goes. You never know. Cardiff was supposed to get pretty well beaten. I won't spoil the result, but let's just say it wasn't a totally one-sided game. It may have even gone... I shouldn't worry about spoilers, should I? The game's been and gone. Anyway, let's move on. The last one, Clermont and Sale. Clermont, they didn't get their game played with Sale last time. That was also called off as draw. Pretty much any of the French UK teams were called off. Clermont lost their opening game. Sale have got a win, so they're actually in third, so they're doing incredibly well. Their position in the Champions Cup is certainly higher than their one in the Premiership, but we'll see how they go away in France, because it's a pretty tough one. This is the late kickoff, 6:30 French time, which is 5:30 GMT, which is probably 5:30 in the morning for me, which is a little bit more appealing in terms of the hour on the clock. Penot's moved to the midfield for this one after his... he was on the wing last week in the top 14, which is where we're kind of more used to seeing him, but he does chop and change. Matsushima's back at 15. Van Tonda's there at number 6. Otherwise, the team is relatively stable. Raka's still there on the left wing. Moala's there at 12. Marvin O'Connor's up from the bench to the right wing. It's the same front row that played last week. Lavanini is still there at the second row. He got yellow carded last week, which is kind of... I didn't see the game, but it doesn't shock me. So yeah, they also, based on the number of changes, seem to be picking a team to win, I would imagine, Clermont. Sale, kind of likewise. Very stable squad from last week. How did they go in the Premiership last week? I feel like they lost. I'll have to look this up after the game. But yeah, very stable. They got Rod, Ashman, and Shonnet in the front rows. It's the same. Diaka and Dupree, so the All-South African lock-in duo. John O'Ross, Tom Curry, speaking of guys who got yellow carded last week, and Dan Dupree. So it's a pretty tidy forward pack. They've not quite hit their full straps though this year in the Premiership anyway. Boosted by the return of Rohan Janse van Rensburg at 12. He is a proper handful, so he'll keep George Moala busy, no doubt, but he's a handful in his own right, old George. Robert Dupree is still there at 13. I guess they need to give him a game, and McGinty's been playing well at 10, so Rob Dupree is not getting a crack at 10. I'm not sure if it's injuries that are keeping the regular guys out of the midfield, or if they're just positioning Rob as a midfielder. I've only seen him play in the midfield a couple of times. He didn't look that flash, but he's a big enough 10 to shift to the mid, I guess. But yeah, maybe it's a needs must thing. Robuxon on the right wing as well, but as I said, Hammersley's up from the bench on the left wing. It's largely a stable lineup from last week. Ben Curry's on the bench this week instead of starting, but what did he come off the bench last week? The bookie's saying Clermont by 10, and the Rugby Forecast algorithm says Clermont by 13. So all of the home sides are predicted to get it done, but Northampton are given kind of the slimmest of margins compared to the other three. Leinster and Montpellier, if you believe what the bookies and whatnot are saying, is going to be a proper hiding. So yeah, any advice you guys have got on which games I should watch, do let me know, because I'll have to check if my local broadcast is showing all 4. I do hope so. I'm definitely leaning towards Northampton and Ulster just because that could be a close one, and then potentially Clermont and Sale, but also I haven't seen the Scarlets play for a while, or have I? I don't remember. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on how these games are going to go. Fingers crossed there aren't huge blowouts, but yeah, we'll kind of just have to wait and see. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.